get your groove back strategies for, um, sorry, excuse me, strategies. Good grief. I can't speak right now. Sorry. Get your groove back strategies for revitalizing your writing practice. Cari, yeah, there you go. All right. So my name is Kelly Howard. I am a quality assurance specialist at Grants Plus, and I have been there for a little bit more than 4 years. Cari and I sort of share this role as quality assurance specialists with a focus on writing, specifically writing quality. I have about 25 years of experience as a grant professional, mostly in human and social services, but also some background in arts and culture. And I am a GPA member and I'm affiliated with the St. Louis Regional Chapter. I am a former board member of my chapter and I'm currently serving on a couple of different committees.
My name is Cari Katz. As Kelly said, I'm also a quality assurance specialist at Grants Plus for writing, and I will have been at Grants Plus for 6 years this November. Uh, across my career, I've had over 15 years of experience as a grants professional, mostly in the after school and education space, but also in human and social services and women's rights. And I am based in Cleveland, Ohio, and am a GPA member for the Cleveland chapter. All right, so now let me tell you a little bit about Grants Plus. So we work with nonprofit clients of various experience levels in grant writing from across the United States. We offer such services as grant prospect research, federal grant writing, and both short and long-term grant seeking support. Collectively, we've raised over $385 million in grant funding for over 400 nonprofit partners since 2007. And our team is comprised of more than 300 years of collective grant seeking experience. So at Grants Plus, writing is definitely our craft, and we are constantly looking for ways to keep it fresh. So with that in mind, before we get started, how many of you have stared at a blank screen for too long when trying to write anything for grants? If you have your camera on, raise your hand. You can use your reaction, share something in the chat. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
yeah. Okay.
Yes.
That's probably why you all are here, right? So,
Yeah, the crazy
we
face for sure.
feel your pain. We feel your pain. So, again, how often do you feel like this, right? The goal of this presentation will be to give you the knowledge and tools to go from this Angela Bassett in Waiting to Exhale, frustrated, ready to burn it all down, to
To this Angela Bassett and how Stella got her groove back. Calm, cool, and confident. And also, if you haven't put it together yet, obviously this is what inspired the title of our session today, and we want to help you get there. So that's what we're going to do for the next little bit. Today, we're going to share some strategies for getting your writing groove back. Just a couple of reminders for our basic assumptions is that, we sort of assume that everybody here has a basic understanding of the information and data that you might need to write a compelling grant narrative. We also assume that everybody here is willing to actively participate in small group work that we're going to do a little bit later in our session and share some challenges that you face when you're writing. So this is an interactive session. We're going to start. The first part of this is going to be sort of a more traditional presentation, but then in the second half, we're going to be asking you to engage in some group work. First, together as a group, and then we're going to break out into smaller groups to do some group work. We welcome you to ask questions throughout. You can raise your hand or bring yourself off of mute if you want to. Put your questions in the chat. We'll be looking at the chat to try to monitor questions and get them answered in real time to the best of our ability. So we're going to start with reviewing the foundations of a strong grant proposal. And that includes, the importance of a central theme in your writing, how to identify a central theme, and some tools that you can use. And the reason we want to talk about this is because we know as quality assurance specialists in writing that when proposals that we read fall flat, it's most often not because the writing is bad, it's because there's no clear through line that ties everything together. So without that central theme, it sort of starts to sound mechanical and piecemeal. So we really want to help people reconnect to the purpose and re-energize your writing process to make that happen, because it's going to help the reader see, oh, this is what this proposal is really about, and carry that through line throughout your entire piece. So we suggest getting back to the basics. And we're going to review some strategies to help you spark some new ideas, particularly in narratives that get used and reused frequently, because those new ideas make it easier to refresh your writing. We're going to remind you how to organize your thoughts, some different strategies for that, organizing your thoughts and ideas before you start writing, and then also demonstrate how understanding that the story that you want to tell before you start the writing process is going to lead to better quality proposals. We really think that going back to the basics is a surefire way to revitalize your writing practice and reignite energy into your writing, and that's really what we want to get across today. And before we get started, just going back to the basics feels particularly urgent right now. There's so much changing. The state of grant seeking is changing drastically. Competitiveness is skyrocketing. There's going to be, more asks out there for the same amount of money, or possibly even less money, depending on what's happening with the stock markets and funder holdings and all of that. Funders are, changing their giving strategies. Some of them are narrowing in on specific priorities or changing the eligibility criteria. We've seen a couple of funders in the organizations that we work with who are only inviting past grantees to apply this year. They're not allowing new organizations that haven't received funding to apply. So that's a whole different, bag of worms, or whatever, what bag of, well, I don't know what the saying is, but you know what I mean. So things are just changing. We've seen other family foundations that are sunsetting. There's a possibility that a new funder is going to emerge to fill that space, but we can't really rely on it. So what we need to do is make sure that we're being as competitive and as thorough as possible in our writing. So before we dig in, we're just going to ask you to consider what your typical process is when you write about the same program for different funders. How do you typically get started? Do you make an outline? Do you look for new updated data points? Do you cut and paste existing content? Do you make any changes at all, or do you just reuse content? I think that Cari is going to launch a poll here. We're just going to ask you guys to are you able to do that?
This is going to be an interesting experience, everybody. So get ready. Get ready for this ride.
Here, I think I can launch it, maybe. Do you want me to?
Yeah, if you can on your end.
Yeah, you're you've like zoomed
Oh,
in on
like
the
went
thing, just
away.
so you know.
Yep, you're
Okay,
right. I did.
yeah. All right, so I'm gonna
This
launch
is
this
fun.
poll.
There we go.
So we just want you to say what's your typical writing process for a new or existing funder about an ongoing program. You can select more than one, select as many as makes sense to you. Okay, we got a lot of answers coming in right now. Thank you all for participating. Right now, it looks like cutting and
Oh,
pasting existing content is sort of leading the pack.
and I do see in the chat that it does look like you can only select one, even though
Oh,
we
okay.
ideally wanted you to select more than one, but just I guess the one that you do the most often.
Yeah. And yes, Callie, yes, of course, reading the RFP and figure out what to emphasize is definitely important. All right. Well, we've got a good number of people who have who've entered the poll, and I'm going to go ahead and end it so we can move on. I think it looks like most people cut and paste existing content and make some tweaks, and I think that's pretty typical. So that's a pretty typical process to getting started on something, especially when you're working with content that already exists. So, all right, Cari, what's your typical process?
Well, I mean, I don't want to give too much away from the presentation, but I do typically start with funder alignment and then identify what information I already have that reinforces that alignment and what information that I don't have that I would then need to go find. Let's see if I just like close that out. There we go. That's better.
All right. So we put in a note here. It's actually a new note. Cari attended a session this morning, the AI in Action session for smart strategies for grant writers. And in that session, she learned that personalized proposals are 2.5 times more likely to be funded than generic copy and paste submissions. So just keep that in mind as we go along. So as we've kind of indicated already, Cari and I strongly believe that every proposal, even if it's for the same organization or the same program, has a unique story to tell. Even if two funders support similar work and have funded, the same program in the past, your central theme might change slightly depending on what resonates most with their mission. So we like to talk about identifying the story before you start writing, and that requires you to have a central theme. Having a theme enables you to draw a through line in every section of an application or proposal that you're writing. If you think about a lot of the online portals that have a series of questions and prompts, you respond to question number 1, you respond to question number 2, but how are you tying those things together? We want you to really think about that, about not just responding to questions, not just responding to prompts, but really telling a story and having a through line through everything. So it helps you, having that central theme helps you identify what data or information is most important, and also what you can let go of probably. It helps you identify and reinforce alignment with the funder's mission and priorities. It leads to a clearer and more compelling proposal, which will demonstrate importance, distinctiveness, and why the organization or program is worthy of the funder's investment. And it's also going to leave an impression because it's going to be more cohesive, more persuasive, and more memorable. In short, your central theme is what helps you find your rhythm and provides a unique message that may be different for each proposal you write. Think of it as that thread that runs through every section, like I was saying, and if you cut it at any place along that along the thread, the whole story can unravel. So it's important to keep that thread throughout. Identifying a central theme is what's going to help you rediscover your direction and get your groove back. And the first step is to remind ourselves how we identify a theme for our writing. And we think that the first piece of that is finding alignment between the problem, the proposed solution, and the funder's interests. So we look at these alignment questions. We recommend asking these alignment questions as a starting point to help you identify what the problem is that you're looking to address, what the solution is that you're proposing, what the funder's interests and priorities are, how that solution advances the funder's interests, and then where the mutual benefits are, where there's overlap between what you need and what the funder wants or needs. So once you've gone through those questions, we review the answers and look for the common thread that we can find. So you also want to consider what's most urgent, what's the most important point to get across in your piece. That's really going to help you narrow in on that central theme. And we're going to go through a quick example, what this looks like in practice. So this is an example of a local humane society that was facing increased intakes and increased costs for routine vaccinations. So the solution was that they needed to find funders that were willing and able to support their increased medical costs. They came across a funder that had an interest in general animal welfare and promoting the adoption of shelter animals. We looked a little closer to the question about alignment and what the funder was interested in, and asked, how did this problem advance that funder's interests? And we decided, healthy animals need fewer medical costly interventions later. Not only supports animal health and welfare, but it's also a wise investment for the funder. And making sure that animals are healthy ensures that they can be made available for adoption faster, also supporting that other piece. The common benefits between what the organization was needing and what the funder wanted to support what is definitely the general health and welfare in the shelter. It's good for humans, it's good for animals, it's good for everybody in the space. It reduces the cost for, reduces the need for more costly medical care down the line. So it's also a wise investment for the funder and a better use of the resources that they have and that the Humane Society has. And it speeds up the adoption readiness for animals. The more animals get adopted faster, which makes space for more animals to come into the shelter and, continuing on carrying on that process. So as a reminder, the problem was that there were increased intakes and increased costs for routine vaccinations. Going through the process of looking at those alignment questions helped us quickly zero in on the story that we need to tell, which is how this funder's investment ensures that the Humane Society keeps animals healthy and ready for adoption. Now, looking at the common thread, you can identify your central theme or the anchor that you can use throughout the story you want to tell. Like I said earlier, that thread that carries throughout. And I just want to point out really quickly, there's no right or wrong answer to this. What your central theme that you identify is what you decide is most important to the organization and the funder, and what's going to resonate most loudly or most what's going to resonate with the funder the best. So in this example, our central theme might be something like this. Every animal who comes into the shelter deserves quality medical care so that they're healthy and ready to be adopted into loving homes. So this helped this organization, this Humane Society, move from describing their challenge, which was the rising medical costs, to framing it in a way that connected with what the funder really cares about: animal welfare and adoption. This right here is alignment in action. This is a relatively straightforward example. We know that the reality is that in our daily work, issues are often more complex. They require more time and more thought. And that's really why we recommend using some pre-writing tools. So before we move on, I'm going to pause and see if we have any questions. Cari, have you seen any questions or comments come through?
I
We
have
need to
not seen
address.
any. I have not seen any
Okay.
come through in the chat, but if you have any, now would be a good time.
Okay, I saw that Colette just posted a question about thoughts on the sustainability question. When the program will always be supported philanthropically. Yes, I think that we are going to discuss that in a little bit when we do our group work. So I'm going to put a pin in that for now.
And I do see the slide again with the guiding questions. So we actually are going to go through that more in this presentation. So for the time being, I'm going to pause on that just because you will see it again. Don't worry. It's coming up.
Yeah. Yep, these are great questions though. And we are covering it. So we're moving on to talking about these pre-writing tools that we recommend looking at when you're writing. We already went through that list of alignment questions that will help you identify a central theme. That is back on slide 13. And our slide deck, just so you know, is included in the attachments. I forgot to mention that up front. That's on the page where you accessed our session today. So you should be able to pull that up and look at it. If you need to refer back to it, it's on slide 13. Slide 12, sorry, not slide 13, slide 12. So let's look at a few other pre-writing tools though. We're going to look at some the mind mapping, journalist questions, logic model, and priority mapping. We've included all of these pre-writing tools in your handouts as well, with more information about each. I'm going to talk right now about how to use each tool, why you might want to use each one, the benefits of each, and examples of when it might be most helpful in your writing process to use each of the tools. Probably some of you have used these tools in the past when you first started grant writing, or maybe when a funder required it, like a logic model or something like that. But we have found in our role at Grants Plus that as people progress in their careers, they get more comfortable with writing for a nonprofit. The pre-writing step often falls to the wayside. We think that revisiting this step can provide a practical and familiar way to help you break out of a rut, restore your creativity, and reinvigorate your writing, which is the whole point of this session and what we all need to really be focused on moving forward. So our first tool that we're going to talk about is the mind map. Has anyone used a mind map before? You can feel free to come off of mute. You can feel free to say something in the chat. No.
No.
Okay. We've got a couple no's, a couple of guesses. Looks complicated. Um, okay, good. Yeah. So we've got a little bit of variation in whether people have used this tool before or not. It's not as complicated as it looks on the screen, I promise you. You begin with an idea, a question, whatever your problem is. You kind of begin with that in the middle, and then you branch out from there into related thoughts or examples, ideas, whatever the case may be. And that will continue sparking additional thoughts that you can keep branching out from the center and build this comprehensive map that becomes a visual. And once you've mapped out all of those thoughts, you can examine it as a whole to see how those ideas and thoughts connect to one another and to identify what your central theme might be. So why would you want to use this? It can help you discover unexpected links between ideas or, possibly reveal just in doing this process, that overarching theme. I think that the main benefit of this is that it really reveals those hidden connections. And I think that, when you're working with content that you're using over and over again, especially, or, a program description that you've written and rewritten a million times, sometimes going through this process helps you understand, oh, there's a connection between this idea over here and this idea over here that I hadn't really considered before. And that might be really interesting for this specific funder that I'm writing for right now. So this is a really good tool to use in your early brainstorming when you need to generate ideas or uncover some new angles. Let's say you're starting a proposal for a familiar program, but you want to avoid repeating that stale language, like I was just saying. You want to explore ways to connect your program to a new funder's priorities, or you need to find a unique hook or entry point that differentiates your proposal or sets it apart. I see a question here. When writing related thoughts, should that always connect back to the funder's goals, not just solutions that my organization internally identifies? I think both. I think it depends on what your purpose is. I think that's okay for your mind map to be sort of more internally focused at first, just to identify all of the various pieces that you might want to have, that you might want to have in front of you to identify any new connections. But then you can add in, areas where you see funder alignment as well. You can start adding that in over, and just continue branching out. Does anybody else have any questions about my mind maps? Not, we can move on to the journalist questions. These are probably the most common pre-writing tool. You may be doing this naturally in your mind already as you're writing, but writing your thoughts down can really give you more information and more detail than you would get if you just kept this process in your head. So the process of using the journalist questions is really just to interview your topic. Maybe it's your organization, the program, et cetera, and not necessarily interview in the way that you're sitting down with somebody and asking them questions. You are asking these questions of your program, of your topic, of your organization, just like a journalist would ask a person sitting in front of them, but you're kind of doing this process with the information in front of you. So you ask the questions, the journalist questions: who, what, when, why, where, and how. Answering these questions can really help you ensure that you don't miss an angle that you hadn't considered before. I think that's the best part about the journalist questions. I have a quick example of this. So if you think about an arts nonprofit that offers a free after-school arts class for students, maybe most of the time you focus on the fact that the organization offers free art classes. You discuss how the classes are offered for free during after-school hours and in a convenient location, thereby reducing barriers for students to participate. If you start asking the journalist questions and dig a little deeper, maybe you discover that the program mostly serves young girls who don't have any other creative outlets in their lives, really. and that these girls over time have reported or demonstrated improved confidence and an ability to express themselves and their feelings in healthy, productive ways. So that takes your narrative from the basic, free, accessible arts education to something more robust, like youth empowerment through arts education. I just saw a comment in the chat about the audio.
Is anyone else's audio? Okay.
I can still hear. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, Nina, sorry, I'm not sure. I'm not sure why your audio went off. Maybe you can leave and try coming back and see if that helps. So like the benefit or like the example I just talked about, this pre-writing tool, the journalist questions, can really help you discover some depth and breadth of your topic that maybe you hadn't considered before. This is a good tool to use when understanding, when you want to deepen your understanding of a program or uncover some details that humanize the narrative a little bit. So maybe you're looking for a new angle from which to write about a program, or you're refining your problem or solution section and need to add some specificity. Or maybe you're preparing to draft the needs statement or program description sections and want to be sure to include all of the most important details. These are all times when you might want to use the journalist questions. Cari, I know we talked to a lot of our colleagues about the journalist questions. What do you see as the main benefit?
I mean, I think the main benefit is just the familiarity, right? So as Kelly mentioned, many of us are probably already doing this in our heads, and I don't know why that keeps popping up. I closed Teams, y'all. I don't know. So sorry. But so writing it out though, writing out the actual answers to these questions, I think can provide that clear playbook to work from, right? So even if you're already doing it in your head, there's something about writing it on paper, right? Or writing it, in a Word document that you can actually start to like gather those ideas together.
Yeah, definitely. And I also see here in the chat, Maggie said you could use these journalist questions to interrogate your data. And absolutely, we don't have to just use these tools to talk about writing. There are ways you can use them in ways like that they're going to help improve your writing, help you tell a better story. So, goodness gracious. Okay.
I know it's closed. I don't know.
Yeah, that's all right. It happens. So yes, great. Okay, so we're going to move on to the logic model now. This one's probably also familiar to many of you. You probably used it before, either because your organization does logic models or because you've been required to by a funder. You may love it, you may hate it, but it can be a good tool to use for visualizing the entire picture from the beginning to the end. So if you're not familiar with a logic model, this is kind of a visual template for you to identify your inputs, and that's what you're investing in the program to make the program happen. For outlining your activities, and that's the actual work that you're doing. Outlining any products, what you create through your program or through your initiative, and then also your outcomes, your short-term, medium-term, long-term outcomes. Why you might use this or why it might be helpful to use this tool is because it really highlights cause and effect, and that can help you point to a theme. It's thorough, again, uncovering something that reinforces a theme that you may have identified through this process. And then you might want to use it. Oh, sorry, the logic model image in the document is unreadable. Yes, we can share our clearer image. So you might want to use a logic model when structuring your proposal around some evidence-based reasoning, for example. It's a good tool to use in your goals and outcomes or evaluation section of your proposal. If you really need to streamline that, clarify it, get to the point of what it is that the impact is going to be. If you need to clarify your inputs or resources and how those lead to measurable outcomes. If you're revising a program description that feels too activity heavy, there's a heavy focus on what you do, but maybe it's not so clear why it matters or what results are going to come from it. That might be a good time to use the logic model. You can use it if a funder requests a theory of change or program logic. This is a good tool for that. And you can also use it when you're working with program staff to get answers about the parts and pieces of a program that lead to the desired impact and change. This is a good tool for gathering those pieces that, maybe you're not going to share the entire array of information that you get through using this tool with program staff, but it gives you, it fills in all the blanks for you that's going to help you tell a better story.
And I see some people in the chat speaking to the love-hate relationship, and I totally agree. I hate to love this this pre-writing tool. It is challenging, but it also kind of, forces me every time when I use it to really get and push myself to get those additional details.
Yeah.
Callie, we do have an example of a filled out logic model, and we can definitely include that in the handouts. And if it's not already in there, we'll make sure that there's one in there after the session.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm sorry about the blurry image in the handout. We will update that and reload it into the system, and we will also provide an example of one that has been completed. So our last pre-writing tool that we talk about is our priority mapping. This is a way for you to identify the most important ideas or areas of alignment with a funder. This one's really focused on funder alignment and identify where those connections lie. So this is an example on the screen here using our fictional Humane Society and funder that we talked about earlier. You can see the Humane Society's priorities are listed on the left and the funder's priorities are on the right. And then there are lines drawn to show where those priorities connect or overlap. This is a tool that can really help you eliminate clutter and narrow down on what the most compelling pieces are that's going to have the greatest funder alignment, that's gonna resonate with the funder the best. Really sharpening your focus on what's most important. This is a good tool to use when you're aligning your organization's priorities with a specific funder's interests, especially during proposal planning or before tailoring a renewal request for a funder. If you're customizing a proposal for a funder with a very specific focus area, this might be a good way to help you sort through the full range of information you have about a program and really narrow in on the pieces that this funder might be most interested in. If you're juggling multiple projects, say your organization has 2 or 3 different programs that potentially align with this funder and you're trying to figure out which one has the best alignment, this would be a good tool to use in that case. And also when you're updating language to fit a funder's shifted strategy or priorities. So you have a relationship with a funder, you know that they've shifted their priorities or some strategy, and you need to freshen up your language to show that you understand that and that you're responding to that. This would be a good tool to use in that case too.
And I see Maggie in the chat mentions that, try it as a flow chart. And I think that's definitely an option. I think the thing to remember about any of these tools that we're sharing is that they are yours, right, to make them what is going to work best for you. These are examples to think about how you might lay out information. But if it works better for you to change how you're presenting it, for your own kind of thought process and brainstorming, please feel free. We found that with the priority mapping, sometimes it can be helpful to see things side by side, which is why we've kind of presented it in this way.
Mm-hmm.
This is also another good tool to use when you have very little information about a funder, right? So maybe it's a very generic mission statement or there's no website. Maybe all you have is what's on FDO, right? But you know that they fund organizations or programs like yours and you want to make a strong case. And so trying to pull out, what you know about the funder and then trying to draw those connections. This can be a useful tool to do that.
Absolutely. Just a last note about funder alignment. This is hopefully something that most of you are already doing anyway, but we want to encourage you guys to be very intentional about calling out funder alignment in your writing. Don't make the assumption that the funder already knows it. Don't make the assumption that you've implied it in your writing. If you draw that line for them, they will understand it, they will get it, and they won't have to guess. So we definitely encourage you to make sure that you're really, really hitting on the funder alignment piece and making it very, very clear to the funder where that connection is. So the result of using these tools, the reason that we encourage our colleagues to use them is because engaging in this pre-writing process really helps you generate, organize, and refine your ideas. It's going to help you see the bigger picture versus getting lost in the weeds, and it's going to help you narrow in on the most compelling story to tell that is tailored to the audience, to the funder that you're writing to. Thinking back to my earlier example about the Humane Society, we use the alignment questions for that, but using any of these other pre-writing tools could have similarly helped that Humane Society move from their central basic theme of we need money for vaccines to healthy animals lead to faster adoptions. That's why these tools are so important to use, because it really gets those juices flowing. It really gets your thinking going so that you can narrow in on what's the most compelling story to tell. We want you to think of these pre-writing tools as part of a continuum in the writing process. Each one's going to help you move from your scattered ideas to focused, funder-aligned, and compelling stories, or in other words, the central theme, kind of what we're getting at today. And then once you have identified that central theme, before you begin writing, it's easier to weave that theme throughout your entire proposal. So if you think back to what I was saying earlier about the portals that have the different questions and the different prompts, if you've got a single statement that you keep referring back to when you're responding to each one of those questions or prompts, you're going to make sure that that thread stays all the way through your proposal, rather than just having bits and pieces of information addressing individual questions. And it is possible to do that. It's possible to have that story continue throughout, and that's part of the group work that we're going to do here in a little bit, is really go through that process and show you how that works in action. So Cari, let's check in on questions again. If you guys have any questions about the pre-writing tools or sort of the central theme development, any of this part of the presentation that we've gone through so far, feel free to ask. This is a good place for us to pause for that. I saw somebody ask in the chat, what does FDO mean? Yeah, so, Cari already answered that. That's the foundation. I think it was originally stood for Foundation Directory Online. It's a part of Candid now, I believe. So
Yep.
FDO.
And Grace asks, how long do you typically spend utilizing these tools? I think a good rule of thumb is if you're spending more than an hour, then you may be spending you may be leaning into that time where it's becoming more work than it may be worth. But what we do find is that doing these pre-writing tools in advance actually lessens the amount of time that you're actually writing, because you've already done the hard part, right? You've already figured out the different details that you want to make sure are included. And so it speeds up the process in the long run, even if on the front end, it feels like you're doing a lot of work before you've even written the thing. So it's yeah. Anything else to say on that, Kelly?
I mean, I think the only other thing I would say is I think it depends on sort of the project that's in front of you. If you're working with a new organization or a new program and you're learning about them kind of for the first time, or you're trying to fill in some blanks, you might spend longer on these pre-writing tools than you would if you have worked with an organization for a while and kind of know all those details already and are just trying to really help yourself identify that central theme. I think it just kind of depends on what the circumstances are. Let's see.
We have another question about balancing the central theme with wanting to highlight 2 or 3 points instead of just focusing on one. How do you select just one?
Yeah, so I think that my answer to this would be, the central theme, if you think about it in terms of like a hypothesis, right? Thinking back to like science, high school science or college science, whatever. Your hypothesis is the question that you're trying to answer. And, you may have several different pieces of data or information that help you get to that answer, but the question stays the same. It is the central thing that you're looking at. I think the central theme is very much the same. You might have 2 or 3 points that back it up, 2 or 3 pieces of your program that really lead to that central theme. But the central theme really should be the overarching piece of that, what draws all of that together. Does that make sense? Cari, anything else you would add to that?
I think the only other piece I would add is that the central theme, you can, other words that you can think of if, when you're thinking of a central theme is it's the hook, right? It's that message that you want to leave with the funder that really plays in the back of their mind. Or maybe in some cases, it may be a vision, right? What's the vision that you want to like project through your writing? Those are different ways to kind of think about it. And then perhaps, as Kelly said, maybe you have some key points underneath that further support the theme, the hook, the vision, but you have that one thing. If you do start to find that you are veering off into multiple different messages, then that may be an indicator to you that you need to go back and explore a pre-writing tool again to see how you can kind of get that back together into just one kind of guiding thought, because otherwise you might then take your piece into multiple different directions, which could decrease the clarity of the piece and the persuasiveness of it. We have another
Definitely.
question from Colette that says, how can you be efficient with program staff time so that you get what you need from them, but then, still respect their time since they are stretched thin? And that is definitely, we know that that's an issue that everybody deals with. And I think, you know, part of it is trying to be proactive, right? And having those conversations with program staff before you have a grant, before you're working on that grant. We could do a whole other presentation about how to kind of start to gather information before you even get to the grant writing process. Colette, Kelly and I are happy to talk with you offline about that too if you want to chat more. We'll have our
Yeah.
contact information in the presentation at the end of the presentation.
Definitely. And the thing that I would just add to that really quickly, before we move on is I, it's so important to do your homework ahead of time before you talk to program staff. So for example, Cari and I work with clients at Grants Plus, and time is money, literally, for our clients. And so we really have to be prepared before we go into a meeting with them. We have to know all of every single detail that we have available to us. We need to know that before we go into that meeting so that we're not asking them for information that we already have. We need to be prepared with the questions that we know that we need to ask them to fill in those gaps. We need to be prepared to, maybe go off on a tangent if something goes, if a conversation takes us off in a different way, and how to get us back there. So just really being prepared, doing your homework ahead of time is going to help be efficient when you're talking to staff, and not, not waste their time. That's not the what I want to say, but use their time wisely, because we know that it's important to do that as grant professionals. We depend on them for a lot of information, but we don't want to, we want to use our time and resources wisely, for sure. So now that we've explored what makes a strong proposal, Cari is going to walk us through how these ideas play out in a real world example. So I will turn it over to her.
All right. So in this next part of the presentation, we are going to work together, essentially. So this is kind of our collective work as an entire group. So first, we're going to look at a sample funder and project, and then we're going to review the funder priorities for that sample funder and key request details that our sample organization and project are seeking with this funder. And then together, we are going to develop a central theme. So I don't know if you all had a chance to look at the handouts that were included on the page for this session, but we do have a sample project and funder information that is one of the handouts. If you don't have that open, please take a moment now to open that. And we're actually going to spend the next 2 minutes reviewing it. If you've looked at it already, please bear with us. But if you have not, this will give you a few minutes to kind of look at, what funder and what nonprofit we are going to be working on together for the next section. And if you are confused about it, it's the document that once you open it, it's talking about an organization called Opportunity Forward. The funder is the Fafton Foundation, and the request is the Next Gen Career Initiative. So now look at my clock. It is 3:45. So at 3:47, we will get back. Thank you, Kelly. Kelly just linked it in the chat. And we'll just take a few minutes to review that. We should have played Jeopardy music during this portion. I don't know what we were thinking. All right, it is 3:47. In the interest of time, I'm gonna move ahead. If you have not had a chance to read all of it, that is totally okay. We're gonna go over some things in the next few slides. Okay. So, just as Kelly showed earlier, let's hone in on some of the key request details and funder priorities, but from the lens of these 5 alignment questions that we reviewed earlier. I told you this was going to come up again. I didn't lie. Here it is. So, some of the info that we're about to review, just so you know, is not found in that sample document. It's going to be part of these slides. So I'm just sharing that in case you're still skimming that document, just to make sure that we're all on the same page and you don't miss anything. So let's look first at Opportunity Forward. So this is a fictional organization, but is clearly based on real organizations that are operating across the United States. So the problem that they are trying to address is that there's limited access to quality career opportunities for disconnected and often low-income young adults. Their solution is a workforce program that provides holistic resources to get those young adults from education to meaningful employment. And then some of the things that make them unique are higher starting wages, careers rather than just jobs, a strong partner network, and a strong reputation in the community. Now let's look at the Fafton Foundation. Again, a fictional funder as far as we know. So the Fafton Foundation, they have a variety of priorities that they focus on. So education, career pathways, healthcare, community-driven solutions, and then they also have personal experience from the founders who created this foundation. And then they are also a past funder of Opportunity Forward and the program that we are seeking dollars for. Another key thing to take from The document is that they have an updated giving strategy and provided some clear cultivation recommendations to Opportunity Forward. And that is that number one, they are shifting to award higher dollar amounts to fewer organizations to have deeper impact. We may have all heard of that happening this past year. I know we did at Grants Plus several times. And then number two, they encouraged Opportunity Forward to share the impact of what a larger grant amount would do and what distinguishes them from other similar organizations. One thing I do want to make a note of is that this example assumes funder cultivation has already happened. So funder cultivation is also another way to revitalize your request. The best practice is to do that funder outreach in advance of working on a grant versus applying cold whenever possible. And it is definitely something that we advise clients at Grants Plus to do and work with and coach clients on how to do it well. If you have questions about funder cultivation, please reach out to us after this presentation. We are happy to talk more about this important piece in the writing process, but it does fall outside of the scope of this presentation, but we wanted to call it out because it is, it's an assumption that has already happened for this example. All right, so if you recall, again, from Kelly's alignment questions, we just identified numbers 1 through 3. So what was the problem? Limited access to quality career opportunities for young adults. What was the solution? A holistic young adult workforce program with supportive services that together lead from education to meaningful employment. What's the funder mission and related funder priority? The mission is promoting education, healthcare, economic mobility, and community-driven solutions in Major County, Ohio. And the related priorities are workforce development and economic mobility, and then the community partnerships. So that's number 1 through 3. Now let's look at number 4 and 5, how it advances the mission and priorities of the funder, and then the common benefits. So does anybody have some thoughts on how Opportunity Forward and its program advances the mission and priorities of the Fafton Foundation? Again, come off mute or put it in the chat. And if you don't have examples, we do have them, so don't be scared. But we are we're trying to make this an interactive session for you all.
One thing that I noticed is that the Opportunity Forward is focused on career building, and the Fafton Foundation is focused on economic mobility. And so rather than just placing someone in a job, if you put them in a career and give them the training for that, then that sets them up for economic mobility in the future.
Absolutely. Yep, that would be a great way to highlight how that work advances the foundation's priorities. All right, so you'll see that in one of these examples. So kind of relating to what you just said, there's a connection to the funder's personal experience. So if you remember reading about Eleanor and James Fafton, they had a journey to self-sufficiency, which again, I think you can make that claim, right? That if you're putting supporting young adults on a career building opportunity, that can then lead to self-sufficiency, which aligns with that the funder's own personal experience. The other one would be, supportive services that align with the funder's other interest areas. So, it's the resources that Opportunity Forward provides go beyond just employment. They support the education and healthcare needs, and those could align with the funder's other interest areas, which you could then tie in with, into your request, which again is just further, strengthens that funder alignment. All right, so common benefits, let's think about that. So here's an opportunity to essentially make your case, right? Per the funder's instructions on what a higher grant amount could do and what distinguishes the program from others. Does anybody have ideas for how we could share what the common benefits are between Opportunity Forward and the Fafton Foundation? Can serve more young adults. Yes. We have in the chat, the higher grant amount can serve more young adults. Access to in-demand jobs ties in with community partnerships, connecting people with local companies that need workers. Yes, absolutely. That's another common benefit for sure. And that goes, beyond just the organization, right? You could speak about the larger community impact that would have. Could possibly hire a new employee that helps with advising youth. Yep. All right, so we'll look at some of the examples that we prepared in advance. So number one, it advances equity and opportunity through support of a trusted and connected community organization. So one of the things we thought about how we might make this organization stand out versus others is speak to the history of the organization and the fact that they are trusted and that they have that supportive network. And so that might be something that we want to emphasize in the request that makes them stand out compared to other organizations doing similar work. Another, which that's what I just said. You could also speak to the connection to fruitful career pathways, right? And that long-term community advancement, which we just spoke about. So all of these things speak both to the impact of the nonprofit and align strongly with the funder's priorities. Maggie asks, is there an opportunity for multi-year funding since this grantee is reapplying to this funder? I love the way you're thinking, Maggie. I love it. And that would be something that you would want to, bring to the table during that funder cultivation, I think. All right. So what is the common thread? Does anyone want to take a guess at identifying what common thread we could develop between all of this? Again, write in the chat or raise your hand to come off mute. It does not have to be pretty. It does not have to be fully, fleshed out, that we're all doing this on the fly and we know it. So if you just have any ideas, go ahead and speak now. Avni says, building careers in our community and keeping youth in the area. Love it.
Yep, definitely.
Workforce development and workforce development and economic mobility. I would challenge on that one to take it just a little bit further, right? Because those are kind of just words that describe the funder's interests, right? How do you make it go just a little bit farther to connect that with the organization, with Opportunity Forward? Helping youth advance. Yep. So the one that we prepared in advance as an example is career pathways and supportive services from a trusted community institution that advances equity and opportunity in Major County, Ohio. So we tried to tie in career pathways and supportive services, which we know aligns with the funder. It's a trusted community institution, which again is something that we could speak to how that advances the funder mission. And then we also want to call out that it's in Major County, Ohio, right? That geographically it's in alignment with the foundation too. We want to make sure that that's very clear. So now that we have that common thread, what might be our central theme? So this is going to be, again, another word for central theme, which I didn't share earlier, is an anchor, right? So we want to take what we just did, figuring out that common thread, and put it into the central theme anchor that we can use throughout our proposal. Again, we're going to share our ideas in the chat or come off mute. Ideally, we want to generate 2 options as a group. And then Kelly and I will share all the options in the chat, and then we are going to vote in a poll on which one we are going to go with. And we have 2 of our own, and then we're going to develop 2 together as a group, and then we'll vote. Maggie, it can be a little confusing the common thread and the theme. The common thread is just kind of like the ideas, right? What are the ideas that collectively you want to have guide, go through your entire piece. The central theme is kind of that higher mode of thinking, I suppose, like that vision, that anchor. It's kind of when you put it all together. Kelly, is there anything else that you would say to kind of differentiate that?
I think that's kind of how I view it too. The theme being kind of like an overarching idea, and the thread being the ways in which you can reinforce that idea.
Catherine
I
asks,
see,
is there?
Catherine, you've asked about is there a formula for creating the statement? We really don't have a formula that we use. We encourage people to think as like in a visionary way. So you could look at it as if you wanted to, if that's helpful. If youth had X, Y, and Z, then they would be able to ABC, that kind of thing. I think that that's certainly something you could do.
I'm so sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name, Jana or Yana, I'm not sure, but it says building local workforce by giving youth tools to fill in-demand jobs that allow upward mobility.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, we could definitely go with that one. Building sustainable career paths for young adults of Major County, Ohio that support and grow the community. Yep, love it. All right. In the interest of time, I think we should go with these two, Kelly. So that way
Yeah.
we can keep everything moving along. So let me see real quick how we, okay, there, making sure I was going to the right thing. So here are what we have as the two options that we kind of prepared in advance for you all to see. So one of them reads, every young person holds the potential to achieve self-sufficiency. They just need access to those opportunities and the resources to pursue them. So in this example, we're not really even talking yet about what Opportunity Forward offers. We're not talking about the details of the program or the organization. We're speaking to a larger vision, right? And this also, ties in with the funder alignment, right? We're going back to the self-sufficiency and speaking to the opportunities that are going to move them ahead. The second option that we developed was at Opportunity Forward, young people have access to career opportunities they won't find elsewhere, propelling them to thriving careers and economic independence that strengthen our communities. So in this example, we are making sure to call out what makes them stand out, right? So this is, career opportunities that they won't find elsewhere. And then we're also tying in that it's the strengthening the communities, which again, we've already identified is something that is a common benefit to both the organization and the funder. In both of these examples, you may not actually write either of these sentences in your actual draft. You always can, but in some cases, you may develop a central theme where maybe it doesn't make sense to write it verbatim in your draft, but it could be the guide that you use as you're writing to make sure that you're hitting all the points and that everything that you write about, you can connect back to that central theme. So something I know that Kelly and I both like to do when we are writing is that after we develop our central theme, we literally write it at the top of our draft. And it is something that stays there and that we keep referring back to as we go through. If it's, an online application, it's something that we look at to how we are answering each prompt. Does it connect back to that idea? So we write it at the top of our draft. You could put it on a Post-it note, whatever really works for you to help you keep it top of mind. All right, so now let us vote. So we're gonna do a poll, and Kelly, if you can again launch the poll, I am going to
I have our options in the chat ready to go.
Oh, you do? Okay,
Mhm.
excellent. If you can
Yeah,
put those.
so I'm gonna send that, and then I am going to launch our poll. So just vote for whichever one of those you think we should work with. Those options that are in the chat.
And again, there's no right or wrong answer. It's
Mhm.
just the one that we decide that's going to guide the rest of our work. We could go with any one of these options and we could build a request around any of them.
Oh, we need more people to weigh in. We've got two that are kind of tied.
Ooh, neck and neck. Give it just a few more seconds.
Mhm.
All right.
Okay.
I think it was close. It was close. Uh, so we are going to go with option 1, which is every young person holds the potential to achieve self-sufficiency. They just need access to those opportunities and the resources to pursue them. All right. So if I could get my mouse to work, I can go and change the slide. There we go. Go. Okay. So now let's get into the small group work. We are, I think, Kelly, running a little tight on time, so we may have to lessen the amount of time that we had originally planned for this, but that is okay. We have handout materials for you anyway to kind of go through this stuff. But yeah.
Okay. So yeah, like Cari said, it's your turn. We were going to originally do kind of 2 sections of breakout, but I wonder if maybe we should just do a single. Do you think, Cari?
Yeah, I think so. I think we have enough people to do
Okay.
that. So we would break out
Yeah.
into 6.
Okay. So what we're going to ask you to do is to look at that central theme that we voted on, which I'll put it in the chat again so you guys can all have it in front of you and know which one we're looking at. And we're going to ask you, we're going to break you out into groups and have you guys look at how you might be able to reinforce that central theme in these common sections of a grant application. So, for the organization description, how could you possibly reinforce that there? For the needs statement, how could you reinforce it there? And so on. So we just went ahead and looked at the budget for this because it's kind of tricky. It's numbers. It's hard to sometimes tell the story. Obviously, you want your budget to reflect your narrative and vice versa. But if we think about how we could reinforce the central theme in a budget, for example, we want to review the budget, the line items that are in the budget, see how they're written, and consider if they reflect what's being asked for in the request. So, if there's broad budget categories, maybe, you suggest to the team, let's dig a little deeper, let's give a little bit more information here. Consider what you could add to either the line items or to descriptor notes in that budget. So thinking about, if there's a line item called program supplies, you consider giving examples, that's GED prep materials, it's financial literacy supplies, it's different stuff like that. Just tying the theme back into the budget and reflecting it there as well, making sure that that is top of mind when they're looking at the budget portion. So
This says breakout room discussion part 1 because as Kelly mentioned, we were going to have 2 different kind of portions of breakout, but we are going to combine everything together. So Kelly, do you want to start and then I'll take over?
yes. So what we're gonna do, kind of like what I just said with the budget, which was, really quick. We talked through that really quickly, but we want you to highlight in each of these groups that we're gonna break you out. So group one, you're gonna do the org description. Group two, the need statement. Group three, goals and outcomes and impact. We want you to designate a note taker in your group, and then also designate someone who is going to share when we come back together. We may not get to every group, but we hope we'll have time for at least a couple. So we're going to break you out into these groups. Do not worry about putting together grant ready sentences. Just jot some ideas down. It doesn't have to be formal. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just think about the types of details you might include. So like if you think about the budget examples again, like what kind of questions might you ask your finance staff to fill in some of the missing details that can really make that connection clearer between the budget and the narrative. So we'll come back together, we'll share. And yeah, you can refer back to the sample project and funder handout that we provided. We can also, I think, if you look at the slides, again, those various questions, various pre-writing tools, the alignment questions, you can find that on slide, I think it was 12. You can find them again on slide 26. So we're going to break you guys out and you can have those discussions and then we will come back together.
And I think for everybody to know, we're going to break you out into 6 different groups. So the first group is going to focus on the organization description. And so how would you tie in everything, tie in the central theme? What might you highlight in an organization description to support that central theme? Same thing for the need statement for group 2. Group 3 will focus on goals, outcomes, and impact. And then skipped ahead. Group four will focus on partners. So when you have partnerships, how could you tie something like a partner list back to the central theme? Group 5 will focus on sustainability. So what might you highlight in a sustainability response that again reinforces the central theme that we've selected? And then the last group 6, will focus on creative elements. So, for instance, if it's a free form proposal, what formatting might you use? Are there specific photos that you would definitely want to include versus others? Are you going to include any attachments that could support the central theme, or other qualitative elements? So I don't know if it will tell you which group you're in. So we will make sure once we break out that we come into each group and tell you which one you're in. All right. Kelly, you might have to do the break groups because oh wait, I may be able to, but then you get to watch me do it and struggle, which is not fun.
I actually don't know that I have the.
Oh, you don't have ability? Okay, well then I will try. And you guys get to just watch me and see how much I struggle.
Oh wait, sorry, I do. Sorry, I do. I can do it.
Oh, well, I'm already doing it, so.
Okay.
Okay. And I think it's going to be about 10 people per room. And all participants have been invited to join breakout rooms, and you should be going.
Hey, sorry, I was trying to refresh to get my audio to work. I was in group 5. Can you send me back?
Yes. What? See
I
who
was in
you are. What?
a group 5, Alyssa Gooch.
Okay. Move to room. Oh, it still says you're in there.
Oh,
Weird.
that is weird.
I
Let's see.
can move you to a different group, but that doesn't help you.
Maybe move me to a different group, then move me to group 5.
Right, yeah. Okay, I'll try that. I'll move you once and then move you again.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, wait, no, I'll move you to main session. Okay, there we go. I'll move you to main session.
Oh, beautiful. Okay.
And
Smart.
then I think I have to wait a second and then I'll move you back. Did it go? Okay, there you are. Assigned to room 5. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is anybody not Melanie? Do you need a group? Okay, maybe Melanie isn't here.
When do we want to call him back, Cari?
Lost track of time. I was trying to put the thing in. Do we want to say 5 minutes left?
Yeah.
I don't know. We just have the recap after this and then the last, and well, we have to go over everything. So yeah, I would say 5 minutes.
Okay.
Well, we don't even, yeah, it's 4:16 or 17. Maybe 4 minutes left. Okay. I'll message everybody that we have 4 minutes left. Which would be 4:21. Okay. I tried to put the central theme into the chat, but it's too many characters. It will only allow me
Oh, do
that
they
much.
have access to the main chat or only?
I don't know. I don't know if you still have access once you join a room, which
Okay.
is why I was trying to broadcast it.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it won't. There's only so many characters. I think, Kelly, we just ask for one example from each group,
Okay.
just because of the time. We're only going to
Yeah,
have
that's
9
fine.
minutes. Broadcast 2 minutes remaining. I think I'm going to close the room now because the options say that the countdown timer is set for 60 seconds, which I cannot change.
Okay.
It won't, it's blocked out for me to be able to change that setting. So hopefully it doesn't get everybody back right away. Close room. Yes, 60 seconds, they said.
All right.
Welcome back to those who are back. We're waiting on all the rooms to officially close. All right. Okay. Kelly, do you want to get started?
Sure. So I think just again, in the interest of time, we're just going to ask each group to kind of just one thing, maybe the thing that you guys felt was the most important thing that you talked about. Just throw out an idea of how you might be able to reinforce the central theme that we came up with through the organization description, needs statements, goals, outcomes, impact, that sort of thing. So we'll just start with group one. Whoever's going to report out for group one, please chime in.
Hello. So, we originally had a little bit of trouble improving the organizational description that you already had in the example, but then one of my group members was like, you just got to make sure that the keywords are in there. So we realized that we were missing keywords about self-sufficiency. And so we rewrote the end of the description. I just put it in the chat to add that we inspire young people to achieve self-sufficiency by giving them the tools, resources, and support which helps them begin their careers.
I
I
think
love
that's a
that
perfect
so much.
example. Mm-hmm.
That was so easy. And like, this doesn't, it's just a good example of how this doesn't have to be hard. It can just be a few tweaks, right? Of some words to tie it back to the main theme that you've selected.
Right.
Go group one. Woohoo.
Go group one. All right, group two, needs statement.
Okay, so can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so we just jotted down a couple ideas about what we would include in our needs statement. So we would include some research with Census Bureau data for a major county, Ohio, that like details the employment and education rates and like salaries in there, and detail how we can achieve an increase to these metrics with, people participating in our career initiative. And then we had a couple people who said they were in the AI session this morning for grant writing, and we would put a little like create a flow chart for like how education leads to improved employment and career opportunities, which leads to our end goal of self-sufficiency, and that how we are providing these resources for residents to improve their socioeconomic status as indicated by the Census Bureau data.
I love all of that.
Yep, absolutely.
And
All
I
right,
think
group
that's
number
something,
3. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that's something else that, like, we didn't the context and, like, you know, our our proposal, our presentation, there was too much to say about AI and like how you could use AI in this, but that is definitely something, right? You can definitely use ChatGPT and AI to support all of these things.
Yeah, definitely. All right,
All
group
right,
3, goals, outcomes, and impact.
We talked a lot, but we forgot to figure out who was talking about what. Um,
no worries.
So group members, please chime in. But we talked to goals and outputs. So things like X% of youth showing an increase in self-sufficiency through pre and post surveys, or a certain number of youth getting a GED or completing their education.
Yep.
Yep.
Great. That's
Excellent.
all. Excellent. Mm-hmm.
All right, group 4, partners.
We came up with several. One was trauma-focused services like therapy that would address youth that have experienced trauma, which is holding them back from fully participating in efforts to, for education and career. We have a program here in Memphis called Driving the Dream Through United Way, which addresses poverty. And we thought that if there was a similar program in Major County, Ohio, that would be good. It's a whole network of agencies, and they have a shared database and a assessment tool and a program that helps folks connect to resources. Childcare, organizations that provide childcare, local museums, zoos, sports teams as potential places for career placement, local universities, colleges, tech schools, a community college, and also construction company partnerships. We have one of
Nice.
the members here they have partnerships with construction companies.
Great.
Nice. All right, sustainability.
Alrighty, well, this is fitting, I think, to come after partners, because one thing we talked about is how some of those business partners and potentially even community service partners could be invited to invest monetarily in the program as well. At my agency, we have a workforce training program, and we're looking at a model where businesses will invest monetarily because we're creating future members of their workforce, and we're sort of providing that initial training for them. So that could be a more longer term business model for the program. And then another idea was to encourage alumni giving. And, that definitely falls in line with the common theme in that it's really empowering graduates through philanthropy and inviting them to give back to the program.
Yep, I think those are all great. Yeah, I love that last one especially because it sort of continues that Fafton family idea of paying it forward, right? So that's a great idea.
I will say, I want to give just a few examples that we had as well for sustainability, because I know it was a question that somebody had earlier on in the presentation. So other things that you could do to reinforce the central theme with that section would be to describe the long-term financial benefit to the families and communities when we invest in young adults' careers. So I think, a lot of time when we approach that sustainability question, we're thinking about how the organization will maintain funding year over year. And what's just as important is speaking about how the program encourages sustainability too, right? Which I think is what Group 5 was also getting to. Another thing that you could call out was the past success that the Fafton Foundation's support has how that has been sustainable, right? And tie their past giving with impact and show how an increased gift could further that impact and can continue that on. All right. I know I'll get off the soapbox now. Creative elements, group 6, last one. Do we have someone
Well,
from group 6? No.
well, since we're running short on time, we can just, I mean, this would be something like quotes or success stories, obviously, maybe some pictures of graduates, if that's something that you can do. Call out boxes depending on the format of your application that highlight a particularly relevant data point or impact or even a quote. Just think about the ways in which you can call out those pieces of information that, again, help reinforce your central theme.
All right, so we are very short on time, so I will just go very quickly through this recap. So again, we talked about going back to the basics and engaging in pre-writing tools, doing that to identify your central theme. Yes, we are including reports in that. Reports are just as important to have that central theme, as well as applications and LOIs. And then how do you find that central theme? You find the alignment between the problem, the proposed solution, and the funder's interests. From there, you look for the common thread and consider urgency, and then take all of that together to integrate into your central theme, and then figure out how you are going to put that theme into every section of your request. Going through this process not only reinvigorates your writing, it makes for a much stronger and more persuasive request. We know as grant writers that our time is limited and we're regularly working on multiple deadlines at once. So we found that working from this structure gives us both a reliable process to follow while also creating the space for new ideas, for creativity and stronger writing, and saving time, which goodness knows we all need. All right. Kelly, it's on you.
Yes. Now I gotta find the polls. They went away.
Oh no, we've got one last poll and it was such a good one, you guys.
Oh, no, here it is. Here it is. I found it. Sorry.
How are you all feeling? Those who are still with us.
Stuck with us.
Who's feeling like Stella? Who is kind of Stella but still needs some help?
Okay. Well, we've got a lot of people who feel like they got one foot on the dance floor, but maybe still feeling a little bit hesitant about it. We've got a couple of people we've got one person that said their groove is still on vacation, which, yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just like that. And we have one person who said they didn't lose it. They've been grooving all along. So I love that. Congratulations to you. So yeah, I'll end the poll and share the results really quickly.
Maggie, I feel you. It is late in the day. Kelly and I also said, like, wow, we've got a lot of interaction and we don't know if everybody's ready for we haven't seen a lot of other interaction in some of the other sessions, and we were like, oh no, what's gonna happen? We're asking a lot of people. All right. Well, we don't have time for questions, unfortunately. We are here we can stick around if you all do have questions, but feel free to reach out to us afterward if you want to follow up. We're more than happy to talk with you. We do have that session evaluation, so the QR code is on the screen. You could also see it on the virtual platform, and we definitely, if you can, we would really appreciate it. Feedback is such a gift. Thank you all so much. Again, in the presentation, when you get the slides, our contact info will be in there. And please reach out. And thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.